Yeah. Well, look, I really appreciate
Sure.
your time. I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate it. We're going to give it a few more minutes. People are piling on. We've got about 40 people on so far, and it's
Great.
just steady growing. So I want to take a couple minutes and speak to the people that are logging on, and want to thank everybody who's on Facebook Live right now watching us. I want to thank you for logging on. I want to thank you for giving me a reason to take a shower and put on some normal clothes today, and be presentable to everybody. So I know everybody has their own challenges during this time, and if I know that a lot of you noticed that last week, for the past 2 weeks, ARA, we have been putting out daily updates. Information was changing so rapidly that we were trying to keep our community of recyclers up to date as fast as we could. And I was doing a daily 60-second, minute and a half update. I mean, it was changing so fast that 2 weeks ago, we were talking about possible shutdowns. Then we were talking about what is essential versus non-essential, and how the federal and state and local authorities are all defining that. It seems that we've moved past that for the most part, and everybody knows what's going on. And of course, the big news everybody is asking questions about now is the Paycheck Protection Act that was passed, along with the Relief Act that was contained within the CARES Act that was passed last week, I guess. So we, in our ongoing effort to make sure we're providing updated and concise information for the recycling community, I was literally looking around to try to find somebody who was willing to come on and just share what they know. I was looking for somebody perhaps within the Small Business Administration, or an attorney or an accountant. And literally, while I was online sending random emails to people, my phone dinged. I looked down and I had a Twitter notice from an old friend of mine, Paul Economan. So, and it said, the Twitter said, like, if you have questions about the Paycheck Protection Program, reach out. So Paul is a victim of his own success here. I immediately reached out. Paul and I have known each other for almost 35 years, I guess. We went to high school together. I know, that's shocking. But anyway, I reached out. He was gracious. He's slam busy, but he was very gracious to spend some time on the phone with me, and willing to come on and just answer some questions and try to help you guys as much as he can. So I will give a plug. Paul is he's a partner in Fisher Broyles law firm. They are and I'm going to let Paul address this better than I can, but according to the bio, they are the oldest and largest cloud-based law firm. So a minute ago, Paul was telling me that logistically, things really haven't changed much for their business, but just bandwidth-wise, they're swamped. So his time is even more valuable, and I really appreciate him doing this. So what we're probably going to do is we're gonna get to it, and so I'm going to introduce Paul Economan. And Paul, if you want to give a quick overview of your firm and you, and then I'm going to maybe an overview of the Paycheck Protection Program, and then I'm just going to fire some questions at you that I have pre-prepared, and then I've got the Facebook Live to my left here. I'll be glancing over at that. If I get any questions there, I'll fire them at you. So Paul, thanks for being here, and go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Vince. I think it's actually closer to 40 years at this point. So
Thanks for
knowing each other. So I'm a corporate M&A, mergers and acquisitions, transactional business attorney. And, I work with small and emerging businesses, and also mid-size, from startup, garage to growth to exit. So I'm well-versed in this area, and deal with a lot of small businesses. And small is, up to 500 employees under the SBA rules. Fisher Broyles is we're almost 20 years out now, and we're a cloud-based law firm. So we are basically, there's no real estate. We're dispersed all over the country, all over, different parts of the world too. So we work wherever we have our computer or our phone, and that's just the way we do it. We all have gray hair, and we all have been partners in big firms, and we were kind of sick of the real high prices of fees and just the structure of a large firm. So we're just uniquely qualified for this situation, unfortunately. But we've been saying that we're the most prepared law firm in the world right now, and that's probably true. Oh, we're approaching 300 partners, so we're good size. But that's really enough about that. The payroll protection program comes out of Article 1 of the CARES Act. And the CARES Act is kind of part 2 and 3 of the relief that the Congress is trying to get to the American public. The first one was the Families First Coronavirus Protection Act, and that was for extended leave coverage by employees, and making for employers to provide to employees if they're sick or if they're taking care of a loved one. And that has to do primarily with the what a employer is supposed to provide to those employees while they are out. There was also an emergency loan. It's called an emergency disaster injury SBA loan, and that was designed to get money very quickly for economic injury, which it was not very well defined, and it grew out of the loans that the SBA does for disasters such as hurricanes and tornadoes for impacted areas that were impacted economically that have been declared disaster areas. Doesn't translate as well to the nation, right? Because the whole nation is basically in a disaster. Those loans are still available, including a $10,000 grant that's issued within 3 days of your application. And that $10,000, there's no recourse on it whatsoever. And it's unclear if they're going to roll that into the principal once the loan is issued. But if you don't get the loan, it's a $10,000 grant. That economic disaster injury loan program has kind of been eclipsed, because after that act came out, they started realizing that we need to make direct payments to individual taxpayers, direct payments, direct loans to small businesses and large businesses and affected industries like the airline industry and whatnot. So the CARES Act was put together over the next 2 weeks, and it more specifically addresses the needs of not only the individual taxpayer, but also the small business. So the Paycheck Protection Program is designed to get a loan to small businesses under the SBA. They're going to administer the loans. The SBA lenders are going to be lending the money to applicants based on your historic payroll. And if you use the money to maintain the jobs in the company, pay your payroll, pay your rent and your utilities, literally keeping a roof over your head and keeping the lights on, and you do that over the 8-week period from when you get the loan, you then are able to submit those expenses back through the lender, and the lender applies to Treasury, and Treasury is supposed to then pay off your principal. And that loan is forgiven up to the entire amount of the principal. So it's there's no such thing as free money, but if used correctly and if you qualify as a small business, it can be an extremely valuable tool for you to keep. I liken it to just keeping the engine on idle, right? It's not firing on all eights. It's just keep that engine in the, keep those people being paid, keep the lights on for this 2 month period, sorry, while we get through and try to get on the other side of this just disaster situation. So that's probably longer and more than you wanted to know, but.
No, that's good. So can I fire some questions at
Yeah.
you that might be a little more granular? Okay. So if you plan on keeping employees working, can you still apply for the, I'm just going to call it the triple P. Can you still apply for the triple P to cover payroll?
The triple P.
Yeah.
So I was actually talking about this earlier with a client. There are a number of certification. The short answer is yes. You need to qualify for the loan. You have to be a small business under the SBA Act. Roughly speaking, less than 500 employees. You're going to be certifying that the current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support the ongoing operations of the applicant. I don't know anybody, certainly none of my clients, and I suspect nobody listening to us or watching us right now, who doesn't have a level of economic insecurity in their life, in their business, in any, I mean, economic insecurity or uncertainty is what we're all living through right now. So it's designed to keep those jobs in place and keep those people being paid. It doesn't matter if they've been laid off. It doesn't matter if they haven't been laid off or if half of them have been laid off. What you want to do is preserve the jobs that you've had historically and continue to pay those people. That's what the act is designed to do. So if they're laid off, you're supposed to rehire them under the terms of the loan, because that's how you're going to get your loan forgiveness. This is not money that we're putting aside for a rainy day. It is designed to come in to your business and be deployed out within an 8-week period, 2 months. You're not supposed to hold on to it or keep it. If you happen to make money from the operation of your business, and that's extra money, and you can sock that away for financial insecurity after that period of time, more power to you. It doesn't say you can't earn money during this period of time. But you have to spend this money. That's what it's designed for.
I gotcha. So you could okay. So if you're let's say you're keeping your employees working, but they're only showing up 24 hours a week instead of their scheduled 40 hours a week, do you have to pay them the full 40 to be eligible for the loan forgiveness?
So that's a great question. The loan forgiveness, obviously this was a quick and dirty process. The short answer is yes. You're supposed to pay them at full pay. If you have a reduction in your overall across the board salaries or pay, you can have a reduction up to 25%. Anything under 25% reduction is going to count against you on the loan forgiveness. Okay, so so if you've already reduced your payroll by about 25% or less, and you actually apply for this loan based on your historical 12 months of payroll history, you have to get your average monthly payroll costs for the trailing 12 months. And that is slightly higher than what you're paying folks right now. As long as that reduction is no more than 25%, you'll still be eligible for the loan forgiveness. I mean, there are obviously some mechanics there that I don't want to delve into right now, but the short answer, and that's not a short answer, is yeah, you're supposed to pay. You're not supposed to reduce, because if you reduce their hours, you reduce what they're paying, and you're going to have more of the loans, at the end of the 8 weeks. That's not what it's designed for. And if you have more of the loan left over at the end of 8 weeks, then it's going to remain a loan and you're going to owe the money back to the government
I got you.
or the lender.
It goes back to what you're saying about really the business is the conduit and it needs to go right through.
That's right. That's right.
You brought up a point, and I wanted to kind of ask you to say it again or define it. One of the questions I had texted to me this morning to ask was, what payroll cost period are they basing the loan on? It says last year, but do they mean 2019, or did you just say it's the last 12 months?
That's a good question, Vince. It's actually very unclear from the way the act is written. The application is very basic. Okay, you want to there's some guidance out there that says 2019. There is some guidance that says it's a certain period of 2019, and if you weren't in operation between a certain period in 2019, then you just take from January to February 15th of this year. What you need to do, and the application literally has average monthly payroll times 2.5 equals loan amount. I mean, that's what the form says, and you write that up. You're going to have the backup behind it if your lender, we can talk about who's lending this money and how you go about it. If your lender requests it for their records, you certainly better have it, your 941s, your tax returns, or maybe a high level or even detailed P&L, and any miscellaneous 1099s that you issued, because you can also include that if you have contractors on your payroll. So, rule of thumb, if you've been rather consistent over a 12-month period, whether it was 2019 or whether, you remember, this whole thing started February 15th. So that was early this year. So if you kind of start back from February 15th or even January 31st and go back 12 months, that's really kind of the timeline that I have been advising my clients to look at, because that's most representative of your workforce prior to all this happening. Then you started laying people off, and your job started to shrink. So your payroll shrunk in February, maybe in March, and you don't want to use the lower numbers because they want you to rehire those people or put them back on your payroll. So anybody who's been furloughed, they want them back. They want them paid again. That's what the loan's for. It's to pay your employees. So I don't have a perfect answer for you because they haven't given us great guidance, but it is, it's your average monthly payroll costs, and there's a definition in there. That's why it would include 1099s and independent contractors, taxes, healthcare, any benefits. What we say in the business and what you guys, any HR folks out there, your fully burdened payroll expense.
So
I have a question here.
Who's that?
This is Dee from Chuck's Auto Salvage. I was knocked off the call. Dakota got us in on this call. And I have a question for you. We've already laid off some of our employees here, and this act came about, the PPPL. And I have all of my documentation done. I'm the controller here at Chuck's Auto Salvage.
Mm-hmm.
So I took all of the 2019 payrolls, I put them into a spreadsheet, I've done our average, and because of the raises that we gave in the new year, technically our average is still okay with the few people that we have laid off.
Okay. So so what's your question?
Well, I guess by law, are we supposed to like hire these people back? Or is it the loan forgiveness will only be a certain percentage because we went under so many employees? I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding the language of it.
Yeah,
Hey, Paul,
yeah.
before you get into it, Dee, I'm gonna ask. So I perhaps didn't set this up properly. This is only supposed to be me and Paul. So I love that you asked the question. I appreciate that, and Paul's gonna address it. But I'm also gonna ask that you switch over to the Facebook live stream, watch there, and if you have any additional follow-up questions, just plug them into this comments, and we'll get right to it. But I want to keep this just between Paul and I.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Dee.
Thank you so much. All right, go ahead and try to answer a question there, Paul.
Sure, Dee. So Dee, it's a good question. Layoffs that happened, if they were laid off because of this economic situation, it appears that the way that they would like you to rehire those folks, because it's no fault of theirs, and you're getting money potentially based on them being included in the payroll. If they were laid off or fired, and the timing's just bad, and they've been permanently fired, and you don't want them back, even if you had the money, then you just need to you need to note that in your materials, whether they're submitted or not to your lender. It depends on what the lender asks for. And then in 2 months down the road, if it becomes an issue, you lobby your case. You say, look, those folks were fired, and for X, Y, and Z reasons, and that's why they're off the payroll. There's no exact science to this. Just by them saying, hey, we're going to give you a loan that equals 2.5 of 2.5 times your monthly payroll, and your monthly payroll costs even is and if you look at the term of in the act of what payroll costs includes, and it includes your independent contractors and your burden payroll. So
it's full-time, part-time, 1099s.
All of the above. All of the above. It's what you pay monthly for that for your workforce, essentially. And that's how. Now notice you're getting 10 weeks of payroll costs in the form of a loan, but you're only running it out 8 weeks. So that leaves you an extra about 20 to 25% to pay the rent, to pay the utilities, and the things that are allowable expenses, which are rent and utilities. It's literally pay your folks, keep the roof above your head, keep your lights on, right? And that money gets dispersed out into the stream of commerce. That's what it's for.
Yeah, and that kind of answers one of the other questions is, what can I use the money for? Obviously, it's payroll. You've answered, does it include part-time? Yes. Full-time? Yes. 1099s? Yes. But then there's some people asking about, like you said, utilities. What is there? I mean, I get that it's vague, and I get that I think we were promised some clarity yesterday, and then they pushed it, and maybe today, and SBA is drafting guidelines for all this, right?
Two sites, Treasury Department and the SBA. And Vince, I don't know how you want to disseminate, but I can send you the links to those. They're the two definitive bodies in the government that are going to that are able to issue additional guidelines in accordance with the act. The SBA administrator is supposed to be doing. Treasury's kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Everybody's working, 24/7 on these things, as you can well imagine. I'll send you the links to the two sites where most of the information is coming out of. Utilities is rent's easy. You can also apparently you can pay on you can pay interest payments on on loans that were obtained prior to February 15th, there are a couple of good just facts, FAQs and things like that at these two sites, and they answer some of those questions a little bit more in detail than I do. But there's something that's very important. It's in the act, it's buried in the act, and it's also in these communiques, that it is highly unlikely that they're going to forgive anything, any non-payroll expense or cost above 25%, and that's what it was designed for. So the vast 75%, at least 75% of it has to be payroll costs. So you just have to gauge it.
Right. So 75% payroll costs, and you're saying that other 25% is what you could possibly use for, like you said, rent, utilities, interest on loans acquired prior to February 15th,
Correct.
things like that. Okay.
Correct.
Let me ask some hopefully simple questions. How much can I get? What's the interest rate? And I know we've probably gone over this, but very quickly, what amount would be forgiven?
Sure. So how much can you get? It is a straight line calculation. What is your average monthly payroll cost? Payroll cost is defined in the act itself, and I can send that to you too if you want to know. But it's basically your salaries, your hourly wages, your short-term, long-term disability insurance, your other benefits that the company pays. If you pay health insurance, fully burdened payroll is the way that like ADP and Paychecks does it. That the average monthly, you multiply it by 2.5. That's your loan size. That's what you're requesting. And then any backup materials, then your lenders, the lenders who are SBA approved banks, there's a list on the SBA website of like all the SBA lenders out there. You can think of all the big names banks, and there are plenty of regional and community banks that are also SBA approved. And the SBA supposedly is fast tracking approval of other ones. The interest on these loans is 0.5%.
Gotcha. Hey, I've got a question, and I don't. I mean, I may just be asking out of ignorance. I've never run a business, but I do know that included in my paycheck is taken out are the health costs, right? So, is that included for an employer? Can they pay
whatever the employer normally pays? So for health insurance, sometimes the employer pays 100%. That's not very often. Sometimes they pay 50%. Sometimes they pay 25%. The employee pays the other part of it. Okay. Gotcha. If the employer historically has paid 25%, that 25% can go into their go into their estimated their average monthly payroll expense, because that's what that's what they pay for.
Okay, very good. So we've talked about
and then how much can be forgiven? Up to 100% of the principal. The interest rate is 0.5%. Looks like they're going to be 2-year terms on these loans. That's the most recent guidance, and the interest. I don't understand how they're going to do it, but the interest is supposed to be forgiven on the principal over that period of time, that's a legal conundrum, but it wouldn't be much anyway. And then, as some of you controllers out there are probably wondering, if a loan is forgiven, do I get an income tax hit? Because when debt is forgiven, it causes your income to go up. That's been waived. So, you can't call anything free money, but in my practice and my partner's practice, collective practices, we haven't seen anything like this. So the only thing that is close to it is the way the TARP money came out in 2008, but that's not even close to this when it comes to actually forgiving the entire principle if used correctly and for the purposes that it's intended. You know,
Now,
go ahead.
how is the government going to know what you use the money for?
Well, you have to submit basically an expense report. You know, how do you get reimbursed when you fly to, you know, Phoenix? You know, you get
Gotcha.
so the lenders are supposed to provide a level of oversight. They're going to take your expense reports, for lack of a better term, and it's going to be payroll reports. It's going to be you know, whatever tax filings you're supposed to make. The payroll is pretty. When you're talking about payroll, it's pretty easy to document. And if you don't have the document, I mean, everyone knows this. If you use ADP, Paychecks, or any one of the other ones, Gusto, or any of the other, those payroll reports are run, right? And you're going to have to submit those. You're filing a 941 at the end of the quarter. I mean, those are the things. The payroll's easy to track. A lot. You're issuing a W. You know, you got to issue the W-2s at some point. You have to do pay stubs. And how are they going to? And then you got to document it. You got to submit it. The lender's supposed to do some oversight, and then they put their stamp of approval on it, and it goes to Treasury, and Treasury has 60 or 90 days to pay the lender.
Okay.
You know, good question. Will there be audits? Sure, there probably will be on the smaller loans. I doubt it. And the lenders want to lend because they get an origination fee, right? And they want to get you approved for forgiveness because they really don't want you as a borrower because you're not pledging any collateral. You don't have to show anything about creditworthiness, and they're only getting 0.5%. That's not the best loan banks have ever seen, right? They want to get that paid back, right? They want the federal government money to pay them back. So they're going to help you, and they're going to do whatever. My instincts tell me they're going to do whatever they can to get that money out of the government.
Right. So you answered one of my questions about collateral. There's no collateral needed.
No personal guarantees.
No personal. What happens if a business borrows the money and then they fail? They go out of business.
They call my bankruptcy partners.
Very good. So it would be considered like any other debt.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. I'm looking
at
here.
That is going to happen, and I can guarantee that there will be significant fraud in some of those situations. You can't slap $2 trillion on the table and not have a massive amount of fraud. It's the very unfortunate nature of the human condition. But that's a different topic. But you know, if you do the right thing, you use the money for what it's supposed to be used for, and you still fail, I mean, that's the nature of business. And that's why we have bankruptcy protection.
Right. Okay. I think I've got like one or two more questions, and I know we're rounding out our time. If you rehire employees and bring payroll costs up to levels for loan forgiveness by June 30th, 2020, how long do they need to stay in your employment? 1 week, 1 month, 1 year?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're advising our clients that until you have the forgiveness grant, you know, until the loan is forgiven, you're probably going to want to try to keep those people on. We don't know how quickly we don't know how long the forgiveness that process is going to take. We have no idea how that implementation is going to work. We don't know if in the interim, a lot of these banks are going to sell the loans. You know, I'm sure somebody's closed on a house and a week later in the mail, their mortgage is already sold. We don't know if there's going to be a secondary market for these things. And so we don't know, you know, in theory, you should get the loan, you run it for 8 weeks, you submit your stuff, your loan's forgiven. What you do with your employees then is your business. There's no requirement that you have to keep them the only requirement is that those jobs are restored by the June 30th date to their full to their full capacity. If they're counted in the loan, right? Most people are going to, everyone's instinct is go higher, right? Take my
Right.
monthly average and, you know, show the highest monthly average I can so I get the biggest loan.
But the loan is based on a multiple of your payroll expense. It's not headcount, right?
Well, payroll expenses is a factor of your head count too. And
I get it.
they absolutely, well, that's an astute question. The application asks for employee head count.
So it's the number, the 2.5 times, but they're also, so if you reduce headcount, but you're giving people raises, that's not going to fly.
You're gonna be penalized for that directly. They're gonna dock you for the lost number of head count. Absolutely.
Okay. And I don't imagine there's a formula that you get docked per head count.
There is.
Really?
It's not. Yeah. There.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can send it to me and I'll
No,
try to make-
I'm not repeating it, but there is a formula. I can't remember who put it out, and who knows if that's going to be what. Like I said, we don't know what the forgiveness implementation is going to look like. We just don't know because it's never happened before. It's never been done, and there's not. They couldn't write the whole thing. I mean, they gave us 888 pages under the CARES Act. And even there, when I say, and people go, well, how on earth do you have no guidance? You know, if you're a mid-sized business over 500 employees, you would be involved in what's known as the Main Street Loan Program. It's mentioned by name in one paragraph. It says Main Street Loan Program. There's zero guidance on what that's going to look like. And Treasury's got to basically write what that's going to look like, and they're supposedly doing that now. So we don't know what that. But I will tell you, if you had 100 employees, and you come back for the loan forgiveness, and you have 50, you're going to have a loan balance at the end of the day.
Right. What if somebody leaves of their own will? You still responsible to backfill and keep that head count?
So another question we're hearing a lot about. We expect guidance on that. Everyone says that voluntary terminations are not going to count against you. Okay. And that it might put a little upward pressure that you can expense a little bit more on those other expenses. What we normally do is, you know, the lawyers are polled by the SBA on questions they're receiving. So the firm usually submits stuff like that. We're no different. And that, you know, that's on our bucket list to ask. And we'll probably receive some guidance when we get to the forgiveness implementation part of this whole process. Would I be shocked if they somehow don't take that into account? I wouldn't be shocked, but I'd be surprised. And that's just a common. You know, what if they die?
Yeah.
Right. Should you be penalized if someone? I mean, no. So these are practical, real world situations that they will ultimately address. We're all pretty confident about that. So it's a great question, Vince. But you know,
Well,
just
Paul,
know that head count matters.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to be selfish of your time. I'm super appreciative. We have about 100 people watching us and have for a long time. I want to give you a chance because I want to know, what can people do if they want to follow up questions, if they're interested in talking to you or somebody else at Fisher Broyles. I want to remind everybody watching that although Paul has been super gracious with his time and his information, I was reading something one of your people wrote this morning. I'm going to quote him. I don't remember his name, but he said, "Look, this Johnny Walker Blue doesn't pay for itself. So it's your paying clients that pay for this stuff." So really appreciate your time. Tell everybody watching if they want to follow up and what they need to do.
Yeah, and let's also remember, guys, I'm not your lawyer right now. So you know what I'm saying is I'm doing this because I have an understanding of the subject matter, and I'm happy to share. I mean, my role here is citizen, not necessarily as lawyer. This is for the good of the country, for everybody out there. There's no question. This is an unprecedented situation. It's the tragedy of which we have no way to even comprehend right now. So, first of all, I'm doing this as a citizen, and I hope it helps some of you. And every morning and every evening I lift a prayer for everybody out there. So understand that. I'm unfortunately right now not your lawyer, but if you want legal advice, the first thing I want you to know is the banks are going to give, if you're strapped for cash, get the free advice. The SBA lenders they're banks all over this country. They are the ones implementing this program, and they're going to be the ones who tell you what they want to see before they issue a loan. They're going to know better than I what their requirements are. So that's the first thing. If you've got a real technical legal issue or something, there are also brokers out there. I'd be a little careful with brokers, but there are SBA brokers. The SBA website has ones that are sort of blessed by the SBA, and Vince will get out some links, and you'll be able to do some of your own research there. And if all else fails and you like paying lawyers, my last name's pretty unique. You can Google me, and the Fisher Broyles website's pretty easy to find, and all my contact information is right there. So feel free to reach out to me, and just let me know that you saw me on this, and we'll route you to the right person. And we're happy to do that. But I'm not the only guy in town. I'm not the only, there are plenty of lawyers out there. There are plenty of people who know what they're doing. I normally like to see someone in situations like this consult with an attorney, but they're real short fuses right here. People are cash strapped, and I get it. So, understand that there may, there's a real time crunch here for some of our clients, and I've got to help them first because they're my existing clients. But I certainly will be happy to do whatever I can to help you. And if you want to retain the firm, that would be great. It's not what I'm doing today, though. This is not business development. It's because I care about this country, and I care, and I know what the purpose of this act is, and I think it's important that everybody who should avail themselves to this does avail themselves to this. So,
Awesome.
That's kind of where I'm coming from. And Vince, I appreciate you doing this. And my brother would be really happy that you reached out to me. So.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you. You can't see it, but I'm seeing lots of thank yous and a whole lot of appreciation being commented on Facebook. A lot of people watching this are appreciating, and it will remain on our Facebook page for people to watch. And I'll probably upload a copy of it to our YouTube channel. So lots of people are going to benefit from it, Paul. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you, and hope you have a great day, and love you, brother.
All right. I love you too. God bless everybody, and be well out there, and take care of yourselves.